So this is the last model. That is the 13th model that talks about business ethics. And in ethics, we are talking about the fact that businesses need to hold some level of moral standards, moral and business, as it were, business principles, and some sort of trust and the relationship with the customers and also its stakeholders. And the stakeholders are the employees, they are the government which they pay taxes to. Stakeholders are those who put capital in the business, that is the shareholders. Your creditors and your debtors are all part of your stakeholders, and the community is also part. So under this model, we'll be looking at the whole concept of ethics, and then also be discussing how ethics are implemented, employer right, employee right, business and social responsibility, ethical decision, whistleblowing, and we will look at managerial ethics, unethical behavior, and ethics in business. So let's start. A company ethics will determine its reputation. That is true. Now, in most of the organization's core values, you would see that they will have stated that we are this, we believe in this, we stand for this in that order. That is actually, the core values are actually drawn from what? The vision statement. So we are saying that good business ethics are essential for long-term success of an organization. Why? Because it is drawn from the vision statement, and the vision tells us what the organization, where it is and where they want to be. So implementing an ethical program will foster a successful company culture and also increase profitability. Take note, implementing ethical program, and that will foster successful company culture. And culture is the way the company do their things, the way they have accepted to do things. Now, developing a business ethics program takes time and effort, it does, but doing so will do more than improve what the business, and it will change the lives. Company ethics will have an influence on all the levels of the businesses, and it will influence all who will interact with the company, including customers, it includes employees, suppliers, competitors, etc., shareholders, among others. All of these groups will have an effect on the way the company ethics are developed. And it is a two-way street. The influence goes both ways, which makes understanding ethics a very important part of business today. So ethics is very important, as I've indicated, as news can now spread faster and farther than ever before. So a company with good ethical standards will really help the organization to, as it were, upscale in terms of their demand. Customers will want to deal with companies who have high moral standard, where they practice good business ethics, okay? So good business ethics are essential for long-term success of an organization, and implementing an ethical program will foster a successful company culture and increase profitability. Now, today, the case is different. I mean, most companies they decide to go against the law, the environmental laws that they have to comply with. They don't have to destroy the environment, the issues of gas emissions and issues of those who go into fishing. They shouldn't use light in fishing, those who are doing petroling, and many other things that are done, okay, unethically, just to have an edge over competitors. They are told that these things are not good, because your customers will then get to know that that's what you're doing. Now, businesses are being told to be eco-friendly. They need to practice what we call green supply chain, where in the sourcing of product up to the delivery of the final product to the customer, and even how the customer disposes, I mean, the remnant, companies are made responsible to make sure that they track and trace this thing, and they make sure it doesn't, affect the environment. These are high ethical standards that companies will have to uphold. So a human being's personal ethics determine individual standard of right or wrong. So ethics allow people to determine what they should do in a given situation. Each person develops ethical standard, and it is the responsibility of each individual to examine personal morals and behavior. It is our responsibility to do that. We need to have our own personal ethics that will tell us not to do something. And when we get into an organization, we are also able to connect our personal ethics to the business ethics. Most people decline on having been employed, getting an employment offer, just because they don't believe in the ethics of the organization. They believe that some of the things that they do are unethical. An accountant will not want to forge, expenses in order to cut down, taxes that they are going to pay. And a high ethical accountant by their training might not want to do that. A lawyer might not want to, go and advocate for a case that they know that the company is in the wrong, even though the company needs representation. These are all ethical issues. So in business, ethics refers to the behavior relating to the moral problems that occur in business organization, relating to the moral problems. Now, people often automatically assume that businesses are unethical. We know people think that these businesses don't mind them. They're unethical. They don't do the right thing. Don't mind them. Okay, that's what they think. Okay, but we don't have to see this organization as unethical from the onset, given the media attention and sometimes the bad ethical decisions that companies they make. Companies can be good. There are some companies that practice good ethics, and there's something they call corporate credos. The corporate credos are actually some of the core values that the company upholds. We believe that most companies live by it. There are companies who say one thing and does the other, and they are noted for that. So companies have ethical obligation towards their employees, shareholders, and investors, customers, community vendors, and other I've talked about. The employees, for instance, need to be treated, they need to be paid, their SSF need to be paid into the social security fund. Some employers keep that money, and their taxes, their income taxes that are deducted should be paid. Most companies do not do that. So these are not very good ethical behavior. So begin by providing employees with the right guarantees to them by law. Ethical businesses, however, may go beyond the minimal requirements in a way that they treat their employees. For shareholders and investors, there is a moral obligation of the organization to pay their dividends to them. For customers, every business needs to build ethical customer relationship by providing safe product and honoring warranties. Okay. We recently heard that I think there's a product in one of the countries, the Gambia, that has killed a number of, I think it's a syrup that has killed babies, it's damaged their kidneys. And this product came from India. So the Indian community, the company is investigating. But the question is, why would somebody, develop or produce a product just to kill people? And we see these things happening. Product from another company, they've used another logo and then put something else in just to kill people. These are very, very bad ethical standards and should not be entertained. So companies that are seen doing that, actually customers are not customers will not even patronize you, and the regulatory agencies will have to deal with those people. So operating an ethical business has a number of results. If you do that, there's a number of results that you will get. So what is ethics? Operating an ethical business has a number of results. The circumstance of each company will determine the results of managing ethics. So there are, however, 10 common benefits that we are looking at that businesses are able to derive when they practice high ethical standards. Ethical companies comply with all legal requirements and are less likely to be fined or sued. That's one. Customers or consumers are more likely to support a business with a reputation as an ethical organization. And also companies with ethical values improve their communities. That is true. An example is the fact that companies that comply with green supply chain are able to reduce the kind of damage to the environment, and people are aware of that. And that helps, the health and safety of the people who live in the community. Ethical rules save organizations from accidental violation, violating the rights of employees and what? Customers. Employees need to be treated ethically. Ethically means that their salaries has to be secured. They have to be provided with appropriate PPEs, okay? They have to do that. And then the environment, the condition within which the employees are working should be that congenial. Based on the contract that has been signed, everything has to be provided for the employees to be able to work. Most Ghanaian companies will say those things on paper, but they will not implement it, okay? Some organizations also across Africa will do the same. Some European companies do the same. Some companies outside the jurisdiction of Europe also do the same. They take people from Ghana, they tell them this how much they're going to pay them, they say they will do that and that. And at the end of the day, these guys' rights are heavily abused. Employees' personal moral standard will improve at an ethical business. And a fair working environment facilitates teamwork and productivity. Many successful businesses practices are reinforced by ethical business practices. Established ethical guidelines will also lead a company in terms of change and stress. Take note, ethical companies retain employees and save money in turnover. And the last one, which is a 10th one, is that there is personal satisfaction in doing the right thing. That is true. Personal satisfaction in doing the right thing. So let's look at implementing ethics. We are saying that managing ethics in the workplace requires certain tools. Every organization needs a code of ethics, a code of conduct, and policies and procedures. I don't know whether your company has that. They need that as part of the high ethical standard or the ethics program that the organization needs to go through. So implement ethics in the workplace is a complex issue, but rewarding task. Every individual has a unique set of ethical standards. Allowing each person to follow his or her own moral compass will set a varied result. And that is why the company keeps that some sort of ethical standards, okay, that they have to comply. For instance, you go to most organizations, they tell you that there's no smoking here. Here, no smoking. Some organizations will say that here we don't pray. There's no prayer. If you want to pray, pray in your house. Don't come here. Other organizations also provide a prayer room for the Muslim, a prayer room for the Christians. Some organizations also do that. So allowing each other to follow its own moral ethics cannot work. Companies need to focus on implementing uniform ethical standards and rules throughout the organization. It has to be organization-wide program. And employees should never have to question whether or not they are doing the right thing. We discussed the 10 top benefits of managing ethics that we indicated, and implementing ethics in the workplace will also lead to a better profit and long-term growth. Take note of that. Better profit and long-term growth. Unethical business practice can cause immediate financial gain, but can cause immediate financial gain, but will cost companies and customers and employees over time on the long run. Sometimes you cut costs, you cut, the procedures, you overturn the procedures and the process just to make sure you go through, okay? You are establishing a company, they ask you to develop a business plan. We all do that, isn't it? Then we find a consultant and we say, oh, develop anything for me, let me go, because it's part of the requirement. Then the regulator now begins to take your vision and then now chases you to find out whether the vision is being implemented. Apparently, you don't even have a copy of the vision even pasted in your or posted in the walls of the company. So that is laughable. So people just think that they can do away with unethical standard, but it is costly when people get to know what we are actually doing. Organization with regulations for being ethical will also find it easy to earn credit, find investors, and expand into international market. There are also benefits of organizational levels, such as convincing employees that the company truly values ethical decision making. This builds awareness of ethical issues and creates an ethical guideline for the organization. Let me give you a typical example. I have this mechanic who works on my car, and for some funny reason, I realized that this guy, I put in more money. And this year alone, I tried to service my 2 cars, and it changed so many things in the region of about 30,000 Ghana cedi. And that car comes back and still there are noise at the back. And I still can't figure out why these things are happening. And most times I don't like changing mechanics. So I try to impress on this guy. I've sent the car about 6 or 7 times, it comes the same. And then I decided to seek for help somewhere. I was shocked what I saw. I was shocked. The parts that this guy buys, the guy has escalated the amount. So his charge is normally small. He charges 200 Ghana cedi, 100 Ghana cedi, and then put all his costs in the parts. Okay. And you keep paying. Sometimes I'm able to pay for parts in the region of 6,000, 7,000. And then later, in just 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that same part that was bought has a problem. Now that I gave it to a different person, and the person, worked on it, I suspected something. I'm very sensitive when I'm driving, so I saw something, and then he was able to detect. Yesterday, when we drove the car, everything was good. My point is that the guy has lost it. And I'm the type that when I see good thing, I will just recommend other people to follow suit. So what it means is that all customers that I recommended to this guy, I have to shift them to this new client, because this guy is ethically, it's not stable. He has bruised the high ethical standard that should have taken the organization to the different level. And that was very bad. And I was shocked what I saw. Apparently, he was not doing, it was just by the grace of God I decided to join this guy. But a lot of things that had gone wrong with the vehicle. But when this guy did the assessment, we realized that there were a couple of things. So I paid that same amount for the things to be fixed. Something that I paid for 30,000, I've paid the same amount for, and it means that the first one went down the drain. That money was just gifts, okay, to this. And for me, the point is not even that the money is gone. The fact that what is he going to do to regain that trust that he's lost? I believe it's going to take him forever, okay, to have gone on that tangent. That is very bad. We say, nevertheless, managing ethics in a workplace requires certain tools, and every organization needs this codes of ethics to be able to do that. So we have some guidelines for implementing and managing ethics, and the first one is give it time. Managing ethics is a process-oriented activity that requires time. So we're saying that give it time, and then focus on behavior. Do not give vague requirement. Make sure that ethics management has an impact on behavior. Avoid problems. Be open. Integrate ethics. Make sure that all management programs have ethical values. Allow for mistakes. Teach employees to have how to behave ethically. Do not give up when mistakes happen. Do not give up. Take note when mistakes happen. Teach them how to do the right thing, but do not give up. So let's look at employee-employer rights. Now, ethical organization is able to balance the right of employees with the right of what? The employer. Okay. The personal right of each party may seem to conflict at times, and the privacy law varies between states. This is why privacy laws are so important. Instituting clear privacy laws will prevent any confusion between employees and employers. When creating policies, employers need to remember that they are obliged or obligated to provide employees with a safe working environment. I've talked about that is free from harassment for those ladies that are being harassed, and for those men that ladies also harass. And this may require what some people consider as invasion of privacy. I don't know whether you are aware that some women, largely harass men at workplaces. They do. Employees' privacy is a tangled legal issue, and companies collect detailed personal information about the employees for background checks and other reasons. When you are being employed, in fact, if you're going to work with customs do, and even the police, they do a very detailed. Immigration also does the same thing. Tracer studies just to see your personal profile, your record, and what you have done. They want to make sure that they are not employing, a riffraff or someone who has a very bad image in the past. So they need to clearly state the purpose of collecting this information and how it should be used in the privacy policy. Personal information must be protected and kept confidential, and employees need to also agree to the background checks. Surveillance, drug testing, and searches are points of contention for many employees, and they need to be addressed in privacy at work. But there are limits to the privacy as more businesses take drastic measures to prevent theft and harassment. So when we hear that a manager tried to harass one of the staff, we need to take the issue very serious and see how, even though we want to treat some of these things in camera, we need to make sure that it is done to prevent other people from doing it. It will serve as a deterrent for other people to do the same thing. So for surveillance, organizations routinely monitor the phone and internet usage of employees whilst they are at work. Most people come to work and then they go online. In fact, some organizations have blocked these sites that you cannot use them for your private work. Legally, these steps are protected in many countries because the company phones and internet are company property, and security cameras are also used to ensure safety of employees. Most times, security cameras are not even for the safety of employees. It's rather to monitor whether they are working or not, all right? And they are on their decks. But today, that flex work and other things have become the order of the day. They are more, aligned to looking at targets rather than, seeing you be behind your decks, because someone can stay behind the decks and might not work for the whole period, okay? So experts advise employees to include in their private policy a warning to employees experts advise employers to include in their privacy policy a warning to employees that they will be monitored, all right? And there are limits to the use of cameras. For example, cameras are not allowed in locker rooms or bathrooms. You cannot put cameras there. Always check the legal ramification of using of what surveillance. So for drug testing, taking a drug test before beginning a new job is common, and employees also have the right to demand drug tests. Employers have the right to demand drug tests in the event of accident or suspicion of a drug. So random drug tests, however, can be tested if they violate the employee privacy. The policy on random drug tests needs to be reasonable and clearly spelled out. Companies are responsible for keeping drug tests private. So for searches, privacy policy need to remind employees that their workspace and tools and company property, and they are not responsible for any loss or damaged personal property. This should prevent an invasion of privacy claims if the employee who suspects theft searches the locker. Searches should be conducted carefully with the instruction of senior management. So companies are legally bound to provide a safe working environment for all their employees. That is something they must do. And employees can sue their employers for not protecting them from harassment. Local and international law protect the right of individuals from discrimination and harassment, regardless of ethnicity, sex, religion, sexual orientation, disability, age. An employee who feels threatened or uncomfortable by any statement, gestures, or action may be experiencing harassment. Did you hear that? Harassment is not just holding some part of somebody's body, but if there is any gesture that sound insulting, there is any statement that sound insulting, it is deemed as harassment. We don't take this thing too serious in our part of this country, right, or part of the world. An anti-harassing policy and training in harassment will help prevent harassment and protect the organization. Any harassment in the workplace needs to be confronted immediately and the right of the harassed employee protected. As technology changes and there are other new technologies that are emerging, so does the clarity about employer and employee rights. That is also changing. Employers have the right to expect their employees to work productively and represent the company well. On the other hand, employees have the right to personal privacy. There are some works that you get yourself into, some jobs, and then when you are even at the home, they even chase you. Saturday, Sunday, they are calling and they require that you should work. Whilst your employment condition of service says that you are working from Monday to Friday, and it doesn't extend to Saturday, Sunday. The extent that some managers will have to go to work on Sunday to do certain things. These are abuses. You understand? These are a form of harassment. Advances, but in this part of the world, they'll tell you that there's no job, so you need to manage this. And it's very serious, and we have to take it seriously. Advances in technology provide employers with more ways to monitor employees. Social networking further complicates the issue. Employees often post things online for their friends to see, but employers may be monitoring these online as well. And it is becoming more common for people to lose their jobs because of the post on social media. It has happened to a number of people. Networking side, a recent surveys revealed that about half employees feel that their social networks are not any business of their employers, but 60% of the executive think that they have the right to monitor their representatives, social network and social network behavior. And this use of social network should be included in the privacy policies to protect both employees and employers. But many companies cite personal conduct policies to validate their actions. So you have your boss who decides to monitor what you're doing on social media. And to the extent that there has been government workers who have come on social media to say certain things that they've been sacked. Other people who work with private organizations, even though these are not enshrined in their policies, they still go after people, their staff. They have the time to monitor them, and they see how they respond to other issues. I remember when the Queen died, there was this professor in the university who was in another African country who said something that people thought that was cynical. And then she was of the view that the Queen has also done more harm to the continent of Africa as they expected. So she would prefer that she died in pain. These are all statements. I believe that in that where that lady works, okay, even though she might be, as it were, making a statement as to her defense, the question is, what is the company policy? Does the company policy allow people to do that, and for you to be associated with the company, how is it going to affect them? Knowing that the Queen, in terms of, I mean, whatever surround him, it's a whole big deal. And for which reason, if you talk about the Queen, it's a big issue. It's a country issue. Do you understand? It's a continent issue. So how, even though you have the right to say the things you want to say, how would your company see some of these things? So these things are very, very important. And it's a classic example for what we are talking about. So we can also look at business and social responsibility. And most successful business operates with social responsibility. They operate with socially responsible business practices. And being socially responsible requires companies to integrate the needs of their stakeholders into the values and operations of their organization. And stakeholders or shareholders typically include the investors, customers, employees. It includes the environment and even government. So social responsibility strives to consider all of these needs in their business practices. And these are different types of responsibility related to businesses. An ethical organization need to, cover different areas of responsibility and consider the social ramification of this. So, of these actions. So we are talking about legal responsibility. We are talking about financial responsibility. We are talking about philanthropic responsibility. So these are the three social responsibilities. The legal responsibility is the fact that companies are obliged to meet legal requirements that governs their industry, health and safety requirements. They would have to go this, and they should be fair in the treatment of employees, under their work environment and their conditions of service. Financial responsibility has to do with, financial ethics, covering everything from fair salary to fair payment of raw materials and services, as well as not price gouging customers. You understand? Not inflating price, not doing price. If you are in a monopolistic environment, you decide to raise price because you know customers do not have the choice but to buy from you. And the philanthropic responsibility, many organizations would have to do that. And this falls under their corporate social responsibility, okay, where they try to help build schools, donate kind of chairs and other items to just improve the environment. They also kind of help address some very serious needs in the environment. In other words, it's giving back to the environment, the community, what they have taken, a part of what they have taken from them. So ethical organizations need to cover different areas of legal, financial, and philanthropic responsibility. And that's what we have indicated. So these are the three responsibilities they need to cover. And sometimes social and business responsibility conflict with each other. And this is particularly true when social business practice cut into shareholder earnings. We don't want that to become an issue. But most organizations have used the corporate social responsibility, the philanthropic one, as the basis, as a strategy. This strategies, 7 P's, Michael Porter's, marketing mix, okay, has been over time overused. So now you have a whole corporate social responsibility department that has been set up by most organizations, and that is what they are using to drive, profit into the organization, because customers are now very, very sensitive to which companies they buy their product and services. They are very, very, sensitive to those things, and they make sure that some of these things do not create problems. Okay. So the earnings that companies make from their profit, part is invested into the society and into the community, The idea is to help improve their lives and other things. And eventually, this thing comes back to the company. Once they know that the organization are socially responsible, then it helps them create more demand for their product, and then they're able to make more profit. Now, for ethical decisions, we can look at it from this perspective, okay? For the best result, and when we say ethical decisions, we are talking about something that has to do with ethics, something that has to do with morals. That's something that has to do with the company's core values, okay, the culture of the organization. So we should always attempt to make ethical decisions, and it is possible, however, for those ethical people to make different decisions in situations. And in business, it is important that people understand ethical dilemmas and ethical decision process. People typically use 5 different ethical standards to interpret the world around them. And for the best result, put the different approaches together and choose the answer, the one that answers or the one that fits. So they have this 5. That is the utilitarian approach, or it has to do with utility. So utilitarian approach. And what is about that? This approach focuses on consequences of action. Consequences of action. And the goal is to do more good than harm in the situation. So that is the first approach. And the second is the right approach. The right, and that focuses on the right of all involved to define this approach. So it makes respecting the right of others a moral obligation. All right. So respecting the right of employees is a moral obligation of the employer. Respecting the right of what customers is the moral obligation of the employer. So this is also an approach, and fairness approach that really look at fairness as the bedrock of the ethical decision they want to take. So fairness expects people to be treated equally. A fairly based standard is used to determine actions that are unequal, such as pay rates. It's an example. That those people are working very hard, but they are being paid very small. So how do we use this approach to correct that anomaly? So we have common good approach. The conditions that affect all people are considered in a common good approach. So systems and laws are created to ensure the welfare of everyone. So common good approach, maybe we are looking at something that covers every employee. We don't have PPEs for employees, so we are getting them PPEs. We don't have very good working environment. Maybe now we are introducing lunch, and it's going for everyone. That during lunch, employees go out, maybe walk, maybe 30 minutes, or spend an hour before they get food. So we are doing something for the common good of employees. Then we have the virtue approach, and this approach uses virtues such as honesty, compassion, love, patience, courage to guide behavior. Most organizations, if you have the time, look at their corporate, what we call their their value, what do you call it? I just mentioned this. Their value system, okay? Just look at most companies and you realize that they would have written that we are an organization that is customer centric, where we respect the customer, we believe in this, we believe in that. That is a virtue approach, okay, that the most organization use as part of their ethical decisions. So it is important to be ethical on a personal and organizational level. Someone is helping me to core values. Yeah. Core values. That was what I was looking for. Thank you very much. So managers and employees face organizational ethics, and the company should have ethical standard in place. Organizational ethics flow from the top to the bottom. Those in leadership need to promote ethical decisions by their example. Occasionally, personal and professional ethics will collide, personal and professional. And in the event of that dilemma, it's important to choose based on what is important and what will do the most good for the parties involved. That is very important. When there is a conflict between your professional, those with the HR, certification or chartered HR, they have their own ethics. Now they come to an organization and the ethics that are being planned, the core values are different. So how do we, kind of merge this? And we are saying that what present the common good for the situation, that is what applies, okay, where there's a clash. So there are several, there are many different ethical dilemmas in business, and that are specific to industries, and they are, however, common dilemmas that every organization will face. Some of the examples are honest accounting practice. I made mention of it. There's the International Accounting Reporting Standard, and then the company might have its own biases. So how do we, merge this thing, or how do we put this together and take the optimal decision? Responsibility for mistakes such as accidents, spills, and faulty product. Advertising that is honest and not misleading. Most companies, this is where they fault most of the time. One product is being, advertised as almost doing everything. I think they've banned some of these herbal products, and it used to be very very uncomfortable. One product doing almost everything, okay? And collusion with competitors, collusion with them to do some sort of price war because they know they are the few in the system. These are all on the ethical business standard. And labor issues where labor is cheated, they are not giving what is due to them. Bribes and corporate espionage, okay? Bribes, companies, most companies, some companies, to be precise, do some of these things, okay, which are unethical, and it allows people to have their own way. We think that bribery is not something that is accepted. It happens everywhere. Sometimes we paint Africa very black and to indicate that that's where bribery happens, but it happens everywhere. It's an unethical standard. You remember what happened when one of the airlines, when an issue happened, which was linked to our former president, and it happened that the company had paid bribe, okay, but as to who they paid the bribe to, they didn't know, but they had to pay. They had to sanction them because it was not part of the it was against the requirement. I remember when we bought this we bought a firmware that was supposed to protect us from attacks, okay, cybersecurity and all that, and we're asked to then fill a form from the US State Department about whether those gadgets will not be used for some sort of things other than for just networking, because these items had that capability to do that. So these things came up and they were very worrying. Okay, but we have to fill the forms. We have to fill the forms and then make sure we pass that test. So the laws that governs that engenders these dilemma, okay, where the organization is torn between doing the right thing as against the rules and the ethics of the profession and the ethics of the organization, then what one has to take a decision regardless of the legal issue. So we are saying that laws govern many of these dilemmas, but an ethical organization will make the right decision regardless of the legal issue, because these issues are so common, and it's important to create ethical standards and train employees to behave according to that. And however, there will always be temptation to act unethically. That we see every day. People put a lot in their core values, but this is not really a practice. They do not really put these things into implementation. It's just for their marketing, purposes. But just imagine when you go to a chop bar and you see a kind of a very nice drawing of a certain dish on as an ad, and then you go there and you meet a different thing. Okay, it normally happens. So most companies are not really reflecting what the service promise that is out there as compared to the delivery itself. So these obstacles are particularly difficult to overcome when other people are encouraging you to behave unethically, and they may be in positions of authority or simply intimidating you. Sometimes your boss will ask you to do something that is unethical, and it's going to cost you your job if you decide not to do it. And that is an issue. So overcoming ethical obstacles by avoiding attacking unethical people and sympathizing with their situation, but refuse to compromise your standard. Refuse to compromise your standard. Now we'll talk about just whistleblowing, and I have another, I think, meeting, then we draw the curtains down for today. Okay, so let's look at this concept of whistleblowing. So whistleblowers are those who are able to flag any anomaly happening in the organization that is unethical. So we say now the question comes when you should blow the whistle. Think carefully before blowing the whistle. Doing so is neither fun nor easy. There are situations, however, when blowing the whistle is the right thing to do. If the rights, health, or safety of others is knowingly compromised and no one will fix the problem, the whistle needs to be blown. And it is an ethical thing to do. Whistle blowing is ethical to do. And blowing the whistle legally requires you to have a reasonable belief that the violation occurred with company knowledge. If it was not with company knowledge, then that is fine. So you can blow the whistle. So for instance, if you get to know that a company is employing, for instance, those they call dock laborers to do some work, and on the paper they signed that the wage rate was, let's say, $100 for the day, for the 8 hours, and yet when it comes to payment, they are paying them $50. I mean, that is unethical, and the company is aware, so a whistle can be blown. So this means that others could assume the same breaches occurred as the whistleblower, and it is best to have evidence of the misconduct. That should be there. So there are 3 traits that people identify with ethical management and integrity. That is, there are 3 traits that people identify with ethical management, okay? Or the 3 traits that people identify with ethical management. One of them is integrity, transparency, and the utilitarianism. Okay, these are the 3 traits, and managers have the responsibility to behave ethically and manage ethically. They set the example for all employees and will determine how effective ethics management can be. Unfortunately, Most managers rather promote unethical behaviors. They force employees to do otherwise, and that really creates some sort of unhealthy situation for the employees in those companies. So each ethical management balances the different responsibility of modern business organization, the responsibility of profits, people, planet, and principles. All companies are responsible to make a profit in order to survive and fulfill their other obligation. We know, but that doesn't mean we should bend the rules. We should bend the rules. And because ethics and values are extremely personal, it is difficult to ensure that all employees will practice ethical behavior. That is a challenge. And there are ways to promote ethical behavior, however, by simply instilling a few rules, such as developing an ethic management program. You have a code of ethics, a code of conduct, and creating policies, procedures that reflects who the company is and what the company's ethics talks about. And it's also not enough to simply create codes, programs, policies, and procedures. It is crucial that all rules are enforced. So creating them is one, and then also enforcing them is also another. So we should not promote unethical behavior. Most organizations, that would want to bend the rules, like they don't want to pay the correct taxes. They don't want to comply with the environmental laws. They don't want to comply with the labor laws. So there's one thing in the collective, or what they call the bargain agreement, yet there is a different one that is being implemented. And because people are looking for jobs, they naturally have to just keep quiet, because they are afraid that they will be sacked when they blow the whistle. So preventing unethical behavior is much easier than dealing with the aftermath. If you prevent it, is better than dealing with the after. And then we have already addressed ways to prevent unethical behavior, so that implementing code of ethics and all that. So another tactic that can prevent unethical behavior is improving job satisfaction. That is also another one. Once you improve job satisfaction, people will be naturally inclined to do the right thing. And employees often react to situations they feel are unfair. Okay, so when they think that their salaries and wages are not, they are not paying them what is due them, they might decide to do, some might decide to steal. And normally that happens. Normally when they say, we promise them to give them a pay rise, and then it never comes. And today management is just postponing. People are inclined to do some unethical or engage in some unethical, act. So if the situation is a gray area, you may have to explain why it was not ethical. Approach the situation calmly and allow people to explain their actions. Do not jump to conclusion, and understand that people sometimes need guidance making ethical decisions. Sometimes they don't really, it's not the fact that they wanted to be unethical. Most times they don't understand even what they are doing. Then it becomes an issue. So there are certain steps that needs to happen if anyone chooses to hold an intervention. That is when there's workplace intervention or care, and when people are concerned about the welfare of their co-employers. Interventions are usually used to help the co-workers with addiction problems such as alcohol or drug abuse. And they can also be held when assisting co-workers to deal with their unethical behavior. So we are saying that when this thing happens, there are these five rules that you will apply. We say that one, called the interventionist, a professional needed to handle the situation. That is one. The other one is to create an action plan. That is plan the intervention, the intervention should go, how it should happen. And then have a group meeting where together beforehand to iron out the details. And then the intervention itself happens, where you have to hold the intervention for an hour or two and dialogue without judgment. Remember, dialogue without judgment. And then treatment, help the co-worker find treatment if he or she decides it is necessary. Okay, if he or she decides it is necessary. So companies needs that must be addressed include company values, personal responsibility, employee participation, conflict, and trust. Company needs that has to be satisfied. Includes company values, personal responsibility, employee participation, conflict, and then trust. So ethics in business require diligence and hard work. The entire organization needs to be on the same page in order for the people to make ethical decisions. It is important to create codes and principles to guide people. The ethical principles and code that the company uses, however, should directly reflect the needs of the business. So when building ethical business, it's important that the roles and responsibilities of each member of the company are clearly outlined. And an organization chart will help determine how an ethics program should run. And there will be the need to be a chain of command overseeing these ethics program. The interrelationship of these rules should be established along with the ethical standard, and that must be embraced at every level. Remember that business ethics begin at the top level of the organization. There is a need of the organization to determine the need of the organization should be determined by surveying both customers and the employees. And most companies have a plan to gauge customer satisfaction. Remember, the culture, however, is a clue to ethics of the business. This is a big statement. The culture of the organization is a clue. In other words, it is a reflection of the kind of ethics that the organization want to exhibit. So culture plays a significant role. Culture dictates the way the organization does its thing, and that is very, very, important. So a code of ethics is the foundation of an ethics program. Code of ethics is a foundation of an ethics program. So a code of ethics is a foundation of an ethics program, and a code of ethics needs to address certain issues. Take note of these one. Laws and regulations. It needs to address company needs. It needs to address ethical values. It needs to address the wording. Make sure that everyone knows that they have to abide by the code of ethics. The last one, update the code of ethics each year and make sure that everyone has a copy of these codes of ethics. I bet I can challenge most organizations here that this thing is not something that is fully practiced. Okay, we don't really, take this thing into consideration. So once the code is developed and implemented, it's important to regularly perform internal ethics audit to confirm compliance. An internal ethics audit utilizes several sources. An auditor or a committee, if there is no auditor, usually goes over the information to determine if the adjustment needs to be made. Do we really do that? No, but the audit is used to evaluate the design, execution, and effectiveness of the organizational ethical objective, programs, and activities. So there needs to be that buy-in, complete buy-in for an ethics program to be successful. The employees need to, throw their weight behind this. It is not implemented to keep employees from stealing office supplies. That is not what it is meant for. But what it's meant for is to change behavior. It's for the organization, the employees in the organization to change the way they do their things. That this is our ethical standard. We do not, we are customer centric. We respect customers. We care for employees. So these things should be demonstrated. It should be seen. It should be a reflection of who the organization is. So most times these things are said, they are on paper, and actually most of these things are not implemented. So ethics is a big deal. If organization will stay competitive, is able to, go through the turbulence and then come out successfully and then make profit, reduce costs. Satisfy stakeholders, and i.e., satisfy the employees, satisfy government by paying taxes, satisfy the shareholders by paying their dividends, satisfy creditors by paying their credits when they are short-term liabilities when it is due, and also granting more credit to debtors, and then also showing concern for the society. If your organization is going to achieve all of this, maintaining high ethical standard is key, and we need to take these things very serious. So we end this model, that is model 13, and that's the last model. I think we've had a pretty long discussion from model 1 to 13, and what a way to end this by talking about ethics. So thank you for your time and have a good evening.